Ladies and gentlemen, the amateur sommelier is back with the finally promised wine lecture on Smoke Taint, a wine analysis post Palisades fire. Very tragic what happened in California. For that, wildfires have been a problem in California for a while. And as we all know, California is one of the big winemaking regions in the United States. And so, of course, after the fires were all taken, well, put out really. It's, recovery efforts are in their own degrees of getting done. I think now is a good time to discuss what will happen to the grapes and the wines of California. More so in general with wildfire issues as opposed to specifically the Palisades fire, but oh my gosh, what happened to my screen? There we go. Yeah, so I'm going to be looking mostly over here and every which other way because PowerPoint is a pain in the neck to attempt to have all of this recorded in a video format or in format in general. It's really irritating. So we'll start with some objectives. How to define smoke taint, explain how smoke taint affects grapes and wines, and name some practices done to help prevent the smoke taint in wines. So we'll start at the beginning. What is smoke taint? It's an illicit, drying, ashy aftertaste. There are people who do not like the really dry wines. This is drier than that, and it's also very ashy, like volcanic, almost like a cigarette sort of taste. Also been told to be smoky, medicinal. Quite horrible, quite disgusting. Nobody wants that. I don't even want that, and I'm crazy. The smoke taint is chemically assessed by the concentration of volatile phenols, among those guaiacol and its multiple derivatives, syringol, which also is found in wines that have been aged in oak barrels for quite a while. So that's not the most helpful, but guaiacol is very helpful. Cresol and its multiple derivatives are also helpful. And those are glycosylated, so they get bonded to glucose and other glucose derivative sugar compounds in the grape leaves or the berries. Those are then released into the wine during fermentation or storage via acid or enzyme hydrolysis. I am not going over those chemical reactions. No one wants me to go over those chemical reactions. I don't even know if I could possibly and properly explain all of those chemical reactions. So we're just not going to do that. No, just know that those reactions exist. Additionally, upon drinking, due to the microorganisms that normally reside in our mouths, those volatile phenols can also be released as you're swishing around your mouth, and you're like, wow, this tastes legitimately terrible. What am I doing here? Very unfortunate. So how are the grape fruits themselves affected, I should say. So there are primary pollutants, among them nitrogen oxides, the volatile organic compounds, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Those react with sunlight and nitric oxide, which is different from nitrogen oxide, to produce the secondary pollutants and ozone. The ozone is taken up by the grapes. Those produce reactive oxygen species. If you know from certain supplement commercials, they want you to take their supplements because you can decrease or eliminate all the reactive oxygen species that are in your body that will cause cancer. And, who wants to deal with cancer? Literally no one. That's how they get you to buy stuff. That's the same sort of thing going on with that. The grapes will respond to those reactive oxygen species. They activate plant defense mechanisms. They make specific enzymes. They make specific hormones, other compounds to try to protect themselves. And then when you harvest the grapes and try to make wine, you get those leached into the wine. And then you are like, wow, this tastes terrible. And it's unfortunate. Very fun fact, ozone is already being used by wineries to enhance aromas, preserve wines, and for facility sanitation, for wine tanks, the wine floor area for fermentation. There is limited research, very limited, demonstrating mitigation of smoke taint contamination on grapes post-harvest using ozone. Obviously, more research needs to be done for that, for one thing, and the other thing is obviously going to be cost. Not really sure. I didn't get a number as to how much money using ozone was going to be. I can't imagine that it's cheap, that's for sure, and yeah, I don't know if we can get any free ozone from atmosphere, wherever. And usually, the volatile organic compounds, their concentrations increase dramatically upon the initial early smoke exposure, and then they remain stable thereafter into fermentation and aging. They will just sit there if you do not do anything. They will have a party, and they will just live there, and it's not going to be great. So, how are the wines affected, therefore? Usually, it's going to be the red wines that are most affected, and it's because of that grape skin contact. There was one study I saw that the Chardonnays they analyzed, there was not a lot of detection of smoke taint in there due to the grape skin contact. Also, if the wines age, which we love to age our reds, the longer they age, the more those smoke taint glycosides just release into the wine, making them taste actually worse. Which is unfortunate because some wines are just designed to be aged for 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Those are probably really outside my price range. That's why I have no idea. So, usually with young wines, obviously they haven't aged as long. You can usually get away without detecting so much of the smoke taint because those primary fruity characteristics, your black cherry, your blackberry, other dark fruit characteristics will mask over the smoke taint relatively well. Best for that would be fruit wines. The young, fruity wine very much so covers that. It's sweet. You notice not as much. Not as much. I don't think it's 100% masked, but it's definitely better than it would be for, let's say, a 5-year-old aged Cabernet Sauvignon. So laboratory testing that is done for those volatile organic compounds after exposure. There's 3 methods that I saw in the literature that I used. That is gas chromatography, mass spec, high performance liquid chromatography, and tandem mass spec, and sensory testing. So yes, there are people that were recruited to taste these wines, basically comparing the measured concentrations of those compounds in relation to personal tastes and preferences. Could they detect the smoke taint? Some mixed results with that, as I saw in the literature. So there were a couple of compounds that were above limit of detection to indicate, yes, this is tainted with smoke. And then the sensory testers, some of them could not determine, or they believed there was no smoke taint in there. And then there were other compounds where it's kind of on the border limit of detection to determine whether or not there's smoke taint there. They're like, oh yeah, there's definitely smoke taint in here. So, mixed bag of results with that. So, the elephant in the room, obviously, is how this problem can be fixed. The smoke taint, not just in California, but also Australia. I think New Zealand has a wildfire problem, too. Don't quote me on that. I don't think Spain and France do, but definitely California and Australia. There are 3 questions we have to ask ourselves. How much work do you want to do? How much time do you have? And how much money are we working with? Those 3 questions are going to indicate what is done, because it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of work. So most commonly, what's done is there's no winemaking. economically devastating. The grapes are left on the vine, and there's no wine being made, and you're out thousands. I don't know about millions of dollars, definitely thousands. Easily, probably tens of thousands. I'm not sure about hundreds of thousands. I have no idea. I don't have economic figures to indicate how bad it is, but it is devastating. The grapes are left on the vine, I believe. I'm not 100% sure about this. I didn't do that much research if they actually just leave them to perish on the vines or harvest them and then throw them out. As far as could you grow in new vines or just replace those tainted vines with new vines, I would imagine it's difficult because it's not just like a kind of house garden, house plants and whatever. You have a small thing. No, we're talking rows upon rows of grapes. I'm not sure. It just sounds like it'd be difficult to put in a whole bunch of new vines. Maybe growing's not so bad, but definitely a full replacement would be very challenging. Viticultural practices that are done to attempt to prevent smoke taints. What's currently being done are these activated carbon charcoal fabric protective coverings for grapes. I don't think it does for individual grapes, but I believe it's an entire coating along an entire row of the vines. There's functional coating sprays. I was not able to find any specific sprays prior to recording for this presentation, but there are functional coating sprays to help. We already went over ozone. We went over limiting the grape skin contact. And there is something being done now, a specialized membrane filtration that is called molecularly imprinted polymers. Do not attempt to say that 5 times because I don't think I can even say it once. It's done during or after fermentation. But their problem is they can also remove the desirable traits of wines, smells, flavors, even pigment color compounds that make wine so beautifully pretty and bold. So MIPs are synthetic materials. They are tailor-made to selectively bind one or more target compounds. There's reversible binding, which allows for reuse, which is environmentally friendly, and I'm sure we are all about that. Already being used for food analysis, drug delivery, and water purification, so they do apparently work. They have not been upscaled for large commercial use in the wine industry. I believe the study that I was looking at for using MIPs, I'm not sure if it was just one bottle. I can't imagine it's just one because that is not a lot of volume to work with to do all their lab testing. It might have been a batch, but definitely much smaller scale research work here as opposed to complete vats for some of the big wineries, I'm sure out in California and other places as well. They've been shown to remove between 25 and 75% of the smoke taint chemicals out of wine, which is good news. And of course, the bad news is they remove anywhere between, I believe, 15 to 35, maybe even 45% of all of the good chemicals we want in there, the pigments, the aromas, the flavors. So still working on that part, but it's at least promising. It's something that's getting worked on. And these are the references that I used for this presentation. So thank you guys so much for listening to my brief wine lecture. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe for more content. That's not going to be very regular. You can definitely subscribe to all the previously mentioned channels, and that's going to have a lot more consistent schedule. let me know in the comments if there is another, I'll say, wine topic you want me to cover, any general questions that you have about wine. I can answer directly in the comments. I can make a video if a lot of people ask the same question. We'll go from there. Not a lot of exercise, weight loss has happened currently. I'm still waiting to be fully cleared for full exercise activities by my podiatrist, and I am also waiting for warmer weather, quite bluntly, because it's been cold and we just had another stinking snowstorm, and I'm over it completely and utterly. And I do not like groundhogs currently. So, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful day.